Number 3, Rapunzel. Okay, I'll make this short and simple. Rapunzel is put in the tower, the prince shows up, he SAs her, gets her pregnant, the witch tries to leave her in the desert to die, the prince unfortunately survives, and of course all of this was happening while Rapunzel was 14. Dear God. Okay, on to number 2.
Number 2, Snow White. The Disney version of Snow White did have some dark elements, but not as much as the original did. We all know that when the evil queen asks her magic mirror who the fairest in all the land is, he of course replies with Snow White. Overcome with immense jealousy, the queen hires a huntsman and orders him to kill Snow White, carving out her lungs and liver and bringing them back to the queen so she can eat them, probably to obtain some of Snow White's beauty. In some versions of the story, the queen cooks the lungs and liver before she eats them, and in other versions, she eats them raw. Anyway, the huntsman has a pang of conscience and decides to spare Snow White's life, telling her to flee into the woods. That's when Snow White comes across the 7 dwarves. When she tells them her story, they take pity on her and allow her to live with them. As for the huntsman, he gives the queen the lungs and liver that he had cut out from the carcass of a pig, or boar, depending on the story. When the queen realizes that she has been deceived, she decides to take drastic measures. So, she takes an old dark cloak and disguises herself as an elderly peddler woman. And she doesn't try to kill Snow White once, but 3 times. On the first attempt, she tries to make Snow White's bodice so tight she can't breathe. On the second attempt, she tricks Snow White into combing her hair with a poisoned comb. And on the third attempt is where the poisoned apple comes in. Of course, the first 2 attempts were thwarted by the 7 dwarves. But on the third attempt, the queen is actually successful. No matter how hard the dwarves try, they couldn't revive Snow White. So, they put her in a glass coffin and have a funeral for her. Then one day, the prince arrives and comes across Snow White's glass coffin. But forget the true love's first kiss. He is so enamored by her comatose body, so much so that he decides to take Snow White back to his kingdom to honor her in death. So the dwarves oblige and give the glass coffin to the prince. But on the way to his kingdom, Snow White's coffin is jostled, dislodging the poisoned apple from her throat. And with that, she awakens and has no idea what's going on. But when she sees the prince, the two fall in love and decide to marry. Talk about love at first sight. This isn't the end of the story, however. As we all know, in the Disney version of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff to her death. But in the original Grimm ending, the queen tries one last time to kill Snow White. So she arrives at the wedding, but she doesn't get the chance. And her punishment? She is forced to wear red hot iron shoes that have been heated on hot coals, and dance until death. Honestly, if I had to choose between falling off a cliff and dancing in red hot iron shoes, I would definitely choose the cliff.
And the number 1 darkest origin is Winnie the Pooh. Well, okay, I'm kind of cheating with this one, as this isn't really a dark origin, nor is it really based on a fairy tale, but I've been wanting to talk about this origin for a long time, and quite frankly, because after this I have to get ready for Halloween of Horror, I can't think of a better time to talk about this origin of this sweet innocent bear. So, let's get into this, shall we? Way back when, there were a bunch of fellas on a train, and, well, they were on their way to enlist in the army. But, well, they got off the train because, well, they needed a break and they needed to stretch their legs and all that stuff. And then they see a guy on the train, and he had, like, a small baby bear. And, well, and one of the soldiers, I believe his name was, Harry Colgarin, he basically said, can I buy that bear? And and the guy basically let him keep the bear. And and Harry and all of the other soldiers, well, they basically smuggled the bear onto the boat and onto the campsite. But of course, they knew that they were about to go to war, so Harry basically took this bear, who by the way was named Winnipeg. Yeah, that's right. Her name was Winnipeg. And, well, when he took Winnipeg over to the London Zoo, and she was there from 1919 until her death in 1934? Or no, it wasn't 1934, it was 19 something. But there was also, there was a man and a boy who went over to see that bear. The man was named A.A. Milne, and the boy was named Christopher Robin Milne. And after Christopher Robin Milne met the bear, he soon named his teddy bear, who he had originally named Edward. He named him Winnie the Pooh. And that's the origin of Winnie the Pooh. It's not dark, it's not a fairy tale, but it's sweet and simple, just like Winnie the Pooh usually is.
You know, Crystal, that was a lot of fun.
I agree, Jason. This was a lot of fun. I hope one day we could talk about more dark fairy tale origins in the future.
Yeah, that would be amazing.